Ark is an ugly, worthless, and disgusting closeted nerd who suddenly turned into a walking skeleton one day and entered an isekai inside video game kun. Although unhappy at first, he soon discovers he has overpowered plot armor and the riz to clap any chick he wants to, especially after a hot elf baddie becomes his companion. However, before this, Ark is just a clueless noob who wakes up in a forest one day and begins panicking over where he is. This panic instantly turns into a fangirling session when he realizes he's wearing the OP fire-resistant armor from the last RPG game he was playing and recognizes his hand-me-down Superman cape, a thunder sword that turns him into a third-rate Thor, and a holy shield that basically gives him impenetrable plot armor. Like some 5-year-old fantasy geek, he tests his sword and realizes he is no longer the useless piece of shit he once was. Moreover, he finds that he can now use fire magic to roast whoever and whatever he wants to, and feels happy that his days as a worthless side character are finally over. Using his only brain cell, he deduces that, by some divine miracle, he's now living the life of his favorite fantasy character, thanks to which he'll be able to use a bunch of cool skills. His growling stomach gives him a reality check, and he decides to teleport to a nearby town to get some food, only to teleport to an early death instead. However, the Lords of Plot Armor save him, and he realizes he can only teleport to the places he has already been to. Sighing, he sticks to another sick move instead that helps him fly mid-air, and he lands somewhere close to a freshwater lake. There, he kneels to get some water, only to see his reflection and realize he's become infinitely uglier than he once was.
What?
However, becoming a malnourished bone box doesn't faze him one bit, as he's already used to looking like a squashed cockroach, so he heads to town anyway. There, his dumbass keeps salivating over some golden roast boar while whining about how broke he is, until he comes across a sus back alley deal. Upon further eavesdropping, he realizes it's just an elf chick complaining after getting scammed by an ugly loser, and his third leg begins popping after seeing an elf for the first time. However, she completely ignores his ugly existence and flees, while Ark is left to wonder whether it was because of his not-so-good looks or empty bank account. While he can do nothing about the former, he heads to a mercenary guild to fix his financial status and demands that the desk guy give him a license. He, along with his customers, wonders why a literal knight in shining armor is begging for a job at a rundown place. However, he still agrees, and tells him to hunt 3 boars, monsters, or bandits to pass the license test. To catch his prey, Ark heads back to the forest, disappointed that he could only find wild boars when a monster pops out of nowhere. Excited to finally flex his culinary skills, Ark slashes his hideous existence and bodybags his prizes as he returns to the guild. However, on his way, he stumbles upon an ongoing fight between a noble family's guards and a bunch of bandits who are trying to steal from them. Not only that, he notices a disgusting crackhead trying to assault a cute noble girl, along with her maid, and wonders whether he should step in, considering it'll be him alone against 10 grown men. Noticing that the situation isn't getting better, he grows a spine and rushes to her aid. Teleporting in right behind the guy, Ark turns this piece of trash and his sidekicks into broken Kit Kats and becomes pseudo-Thor to take care of the rest. With these boneheads dead, he turns to the girls who introduce themselves as Lauren and Rita and asks them to cover their plots, now that fan service time is over. While Lauren joins his one-man simp club after seeing how cool he is, Ark barbecues all the corpses and steals the bandits' money and horses, kickstarting his shady side business. Later, he escorts the girls back home and returns to the guild with 3 body bags, surprising the guildmaster as he didn't expect him to be done with it so quickly. The guy also teaches him how to remove rune stones from monsters after unaliving them and hands him his license, explaining that their guild is pretty lame, so if he wants to get better jobs, he will need to join a bigger one. Ark pays no heed to him and quickly books a motel room to celebrate his first day in the Isekai land with a feast and some much-needed beer. The next day, Ark heads to a nearby village at a little girl's request to play her personal John Wick while she picks up medicinal herbs to help her poor, hard-working mother. After reciting an internal monologue on how he's keeping a low profile, he knocks at her door, only to scare the shit out of her. Later, he explains he's the one who took on the babysitting job she posted because he wants to experience motherhood in some weird way. In reality, however, it's because being the certified dweeb that he is, he wanted to start with a beginner-level quest. The girl, Marka, believes him and quickly takes him to the nearby forest, revealing her sob story on the way. It turns out that after her father died last year, she has been sneaking out to gather herbs to support her family. It moves Ark to tears because all he did when he was her age was dream about clapping waifus and imagine himself as some Shunin MC. Later, while she over-explains some healing herb to Ark and rushes towards a bush to gather some, he notices the bushes rustling and warns her about it, only to later discover a Shrek-themed baby fox behind them. Upon noticing that she's hurt, Ark tries to help her, but she shows him some tough love instead. He heals her despite her trashy attitude, after which she makes him her self-proclaimed master. Although Ark wonders why he only gets treated like a master by non-human females, he still decides to adopt the fox and names her Panta. Meanwhile, a hunter rushes back to Marka's village, pissing his pants over some alien-like wild boar in the forest. Marka's mother overhears this, and some dumb old hag adds to her misery by telling her that her daughter went into the woods some time ago. At the same time, Marka discovers a field where rare herbs are growing on a tree. However, right before she gets to pick it, a big ugly Kermit on steroids awakens and almost turns her into minced meat. Right as Ark saves her, he attacks them with his morning breath, making the knight wonder why he doesn't use mouthwash. This pisses the monster off, so he begins to attack him with his claws. But when that doesn't work either, he tries to lure him with his long and sticky tongue. When that fails to lock him in too, the Kermit wannabe uses some voodoo dark magic to turn him into stone, but Ark dodges this Medusa move with his OP shield. Upon realizing that being the MC, Ark won't be running out of ass pulls anytime soon, the poor frog throws a tantrum, which the knight puts an end to by finishing him in one move with his thunder. After celebrating this career milestone, Ark realizes that Marka might flex this in front of the people in the village and begs her not to turn him into an overnight celebrity. She agrees, and he bribes her by capturing a wild boar, who unfortunately wanders to his death, for a late-night feast. While he does so, Ark notices a strange friendship bracelet around the dead Kermit's limb, which disappears before you get a closer look. Later, as they return to the village with the slain boar, Marka's mother finds her, and instead of lecturing her, she hugs her, crying because she's safe. Ark steps in as her babysitter and asks her not to scold Marka, explaining that she's the kindest kid he has ever come across, something that her mother agrees with. In the evening, as the family bids him farewell, Marka's sister gives a flower tiara to Ark, and this Barbie-coated Sigma makes his way back to the guild. That night, some useless royal knights slay another one of those cracked-out Kermits after facing a great deal of casualties on their side, only to discover that somebody else had already unalived this beast, single-handedly. One night, the same hot chick from the alleyway walks through a forest, yapping about how she wants to become a professional cleanup maid by fixing the mess created by human and elf elders. At the same time, Ark awakens the six eyes and wipes the floor with some bandits inside a nearby cave. Thanks to this little adventure, he comes across the bandits' previous treasure hunt and also notices two empty cages inside their hideout, while the elf chick stalks him from the outside. Meanwhile, an ugly rich lord with a socially distancing mustache berates his underling for failing to unalive Lauren. The underpaid guy explains that a single mercenary ruined their entire scheme at the very last minute. Moreover, their plan B, which was to use their steroid-amped frogs to destroy Lauren's kingdom, has gone down the drain too due to the mysterious unaliving of those beasts. While the ugly fat-ass curses his bad luck, the underling asks why the second prince, Dakaris, is plotting to destroy the said kingdom in the first place. He explains it's because Dakaris wants to rule the north so that the eastern kingdom can conquer the west, which is ironically backed by his elder brother, the first prince. The underling barely understands these family politics, so Fatty tells him to focus on preparing the product for their next sale quickly. Back at the cave, as soon as Ark steps out with his heaps of free gold, the psycho elf jumps him, and he instantly recognizes her from before, wondering why she's so desperate to get laid.
What the fuck?
She tells him to return the kids he has kidnapped, while the poor guy tries to explain that there's been a misunderstanding. However, being a woman, she doesn't listen and keeps attacking him until Panta's cute face pops out from behind him. Instantly freezing, she wonders why a holy spirit animal is hanging out with a loser like him, and realizes that Ark isn't the bandit, but is the one who was hunting them. She apologizes for acting like a bitch and explains she's here because she heard that the bastards who are kidnapping and selling elf kids are operating from this cave. Ark tells her she's too late if that's the case, since the cave is empty, and offers to help her look for the criminals. She rudely turns him down and leaves, but this freak thinks she's just playing hard to get and secretly follows after her in hopes of completing the help the hot chick game route. The next day, when he heads to the woods to stalk her, Ark instead stumbles upon an ongoing elf kidnapping by none other than the ugly mustache guy's even uglier son, Udalan. However, being the CEO of cowardice, he only watches from behind the bushes as this bastard violates and injures an elf kid. Mad that once again, he couldn't land any hot elf chick to clap. Even after his sidekicks remind him these elves are the products they are meant to sell, he tells them to shut their trap and finds more of them to bother. When it gets too much for Ark's pansy existence to watch, he decides to step in, only for the elf chick to make a dramatic appearance and slash Udalan's lackeys instead. While Ark fangirls from the background, the elf girl tells them they are about to get spanked, but Udalan takes no interest in her, saying he isn't into masochism and baddies.
Not bad, not bad.
The rest of the freaks, however, come at her with ill intentions, only to turn into puzzle pieces. Udalan's disgusting face soon realizes that he can't win against her one-on-one, so he tortures the other elves to make her drop her weapons. She curses his ancestors, but eventually does as she's told to, and the rest of the losers quickly jump on her to explore her plot cannons. Right then, Ark makes a Shunin-worthy entrance and rewires Udalan's sick brain chemistry with a sucker punch to his guts. This gives the elf girl an opening too, and they both team up to cook them. However, even after Ark's help, the baddie claims she doesn't need his assistance, only for him to rizz her up with his muscle work immediately. Not only that, once the children are rescued, the Riz King undoes their high-level ceiling bands like it's child's play, and even heals their wounds in an instant. Not surprisingly, free healthcare turns her on, and the chick's mouth hangs in awe. Later, she hands the kids over to her companions so they would quit cock-blocking her, and tells Ark she's Ariani, a self-employed warrior. Since she can't ask him out just yet, she asks Ark if he would like to join her vigilante side business and help her rescue the other kidnapped elf kids. He instantly agrees since he wants to get laid as soon as possible too, and the two begin their first mission by teleporting to a nearby town to meet up with Ariani's elf friend, who is supposed to give them intel on the whereabouts of the other elves. Although Ark's kinky ass expects it to be another hot elf mommy, the friend turns out to be some eyebrowless male Cinderella, named Danka instead. This new character turns Ark into a third wheel instantly, but he still follows the elves to an inn, only to discover Danka is more interested in cooked animal meat than Ariani's plot-heavy meatballs. As his alpha image crumbles before Ark, Danka explains that he's located a nearby hideout where kidnapped elves are being trafficked. Ariani decides they should attack the place after midnight, so Ark takes his leave until then and stuffs his face elsewhere, as he couldn't have shown Ariani his ugly skeleton head and expected her to sleep with him someday. Meanwhile, the depressed chick rants to Danka about how useless she has been and how she would have been cooked if it wasn't for Ark's help. She also worries that her elder sister would have been better suited for this job, but Danka tells her he's not her free therapist and that she shouldn't compare herself to others. Elsewhere, the kidnapped elf kids get harassed by the sick humans guarding their jail cell. That night, as Ark and Co. sneak up to the hideout, some shady baddie stalks them from afar. They don't notice, and Ark teleports the two elves to a nearby roof where Ariani tries to enter the building through a window. However, her huge melons get stuck, and she barely makes it inside in one piece, a view that Ark's cultured ass thoroughly enjoys.
Damn!
As soon as she's in, though, Ark teleports Danka, making her question why he didn't tell her this was an option all along. He says he couldn't have angered the fan service gods when they were being so kind to him, and Danka tells her to quit whining and move on, because she just isn't that hot. As soon as they begin investigating, they discover that most of the bandits in the hideout have already been unalived. Splitting up, Ark lands himself inside a locked room where the stalker baddie from before hits him with a kunai, before going full psycho with her punches, stopping only when Ark calls her a ninja. She's surprised he knows this top-secret information, as ninjas are practically a secret in their world. But in reality, Ark is just a weeb turned on by her cat ears and tail who has read Naruto. While he fangirls over that, she wonders if he's some divine entity and hands him a scroll, claiming that since he's here to free the elves, It should help him. She also notices Ponta and apologizes for being rude in her presence before bribing the gluttonous fox with some cheap berries. After this, she leaves, and Ark takes the scroll to Ariani and Danka, who realize it's a leaked business contract of elf slavery signed by none other than the Mustache Lord. Ariani decides to deal with it later and rescue the kids first, only for some ugly thugs to rain on their parade. However, since she's tired of their BS, she cooks them with her fire magic, and the gang makes it to the basement where they find the captives. Ark flexes his non-existent muscles to set them free and uses teleportation to take them away from the hideout. He also releases the seals around their necks, which surprises Danka, and he begins pissing his pants, wondering just how OP Ark is. While the grateful kids thank the skeleton, this mid-tier pansy tells Ariani he'll babysit the kids while she should man up and rescue the elves at the Lord's house with her soon-to-be boyfriend. At the same time, the sadistic lord of the town, the a-hole with the ugly mustache, violates the elf slaves he kidnapped, while the girls curse his flea-sized eggplant and tell him to screw himself. This only turns on the bonehead, who is putting on a show in front of his very own son, the beat-up Udalan. On the other hand, Ariani enjoys some princess treatment from Ark before they land on the bell tower, where some weak guards discover them. Ark activates his magic eyes and blasts the bell to keep them at bay before they rush downstairs. There, the knight camouflages himself to evade the search for them, and soon, they break into the ugly baboon's room where he's shamelessly creeping out the elf girls. Like the coolest power couple ever, they break in and scare the living hell out of Udalan, who recognizes them as the artist behind his currently gorgeous face. The dumb lord, however, tries to berate Ariani instead, only for her to crush his nuts and put him out of business. As she frees the girls, Ark intimidates Udalan and discovers a hidden room behind one of the room's walls. When he tries to tell Ariani about it, he notices she's punishing the ugly lord with a much-needed spanking session, along with the kidnapped elf chicks, and leaves her be. Right then, some guards rush to the room, and being a certified feminist, he tells Ariani to take care of them, while he quietly hoards the golds and silvers from the lord's hidden treasure. Ariani catches him in the middle of it, so although he just wants to use this money for his shady side business, he makes up some CSI-inspired story about how this elf trafficking business will go down the drain if they just take all their funds away. Ariani's dumbass praises him for his big brain energy right before they teleport out of the palace. Once outside, Ariani ends their contract and asks if Ark would like to accompany her to her elf village. Although this kinky loser immediately wants to say yes to experiencing this fantasy elf heaven, he plays hard to get and tells her he can never remove his helmet. Ariani says if that's the case, he won't be able to enter the village, but he makes up some sob story about how he was cursed in the past and will inevitably end their soon-to-happen clapping session if she sees his truly ugly face. Being the Mother Teresa wannabe that she is, Ariani tells him she won't think so, and Ark takes off his helmet for validation. Obviously, she thinks he's ugly as sin, but realizing how much he has helped her, she promises to keep his secret safe, and they officially become partners. The next morning in the capital city, the king discusses the raid at the Lord of Fat and Ugly's house from last night, and Sect blames the elves for it. The king questions why, so he explains the rumors about the elf kidnappings and says it makes sense for them to retaliate. Dakares, the prince involved in the trafficking, calls this story some made-up BS. But before the two throne-hungry brats begin a catfight, their daddy decides to send his daughter, Uriarna, to a nearby kingdom that is on friendly terms with the elves, in hopes of solving their issues and misunderstandings, which pisses off Dakares. On the other hand, Ark and Ariani enjoy their traveling date, and he captures fish for them to eat at night, like some chick-pleasing certified Sigma. However, Ariani still feels hungry after that, so he heads out to hunt a boar, in hopes of scoring well as her potential future boyfriend.
The way you're doing great for your first day.
With him gone, Ariani lets her baddie facade off and starts to cuddle with Ponta, which Ark walks in on, leaving her embarrassed. Meanwhile, Uriarna believes that Sect is the one plotting to expose Dakares' secret by using this elf issue, and is determined to save her kingdom. The following morning, the Queen of Plot Cannons and Ark reach the elf village. Ariani makes her way inside so that she can convince the elder to adopt Ark while he stays outside, simping after how cool the fantasy village looks. He skips like a 5-year-old, plays, and frowns from waiting when Ariani finally shows up and lets him in. She takes him to a big, thick tree where two divas meet him, whom she introduces as her parents. Ark has a hard time determining who the man in this relationship is until the Drip King introduces himself as Dylan, the elder of the village. Her mother introduces herself as Glennice, making Ark finally see where she got her juicy melons from. It then hits him that Ariane has been a Nepo baby all along, and he wonders if he's meeting with her parents for their future marriage. However, it soon becomes a political discussion with Dylan reprimanding Ariane for being reckless and thanking Ark for keeping his daughter safe. That night, he finally gets to strip and sleep in peace. The next day, he finds that Ariane has gone to the elf capital with her father, and that he has landed the wrong elf chick since Glennis suddenly seems like a better choice. She takes him to the village for a tour later, making him wonder if they are officially sugar mommy and baby. Now, however, their trip gets ruined by the other elves glaring at Ark from afar. This gets fixed when the kids from before recognize him and boost his ego. Meanwhile, at the capital, Ariane and Dylan join the grand meeting where an annoying old hag, after roasting her for being a dumb, stupid brat, decides to let her attack on the Mustache Lord's house slide. He further plans to investigate the elf trafficking and tells the warriors to continue cleaning up after his shit and rescuing their kidnapped kindred. Back in the city, Glennis invites Ark for a sparring match, and although he underestimates her, she easily wipes the floor with him, revealing she's the one who taught Ariane sword fighting. He tries again and again, but gets cooked each time. Meanwhile, Ariane apologizes to Dylan for becoming the family disappointment, but he says he expected nothing less from his useless genes, so it's okay. He further reveals that her sister Even is going to get married soon. This comes as a shock because she truly believed with her personality she would die a virgin. Just then, the said sister shows up and greets mostly her massive plot cannons, loving how they have grown since she last saw her. Dylan takes his leave because he doesn't want to intrude upon this Alabama situation, and even tells Ariane that she is proud of how she's rescuing all their brethren. Meanwhile, even Ark's teleportation fails to work against the mommy elf, so the MILF takes him back home and asks him to rest his sore but non-existent muscles in the hot bath. Since this is the first time he has taken a bath in the past few weeks, he thoroughly enjoys the sweet treatment. At the same time, Ariane returns home too and takes off her clothes, preparing for some fan service. While Ark couldn't have imagined his warm bath could get any better, he finds himself in instant hot heaven as Ariane shows up before him with her juicy melons on full display.
It was perfect.
He wonders why she's so desperate to get busy when they haven't even discussed marriage with her parents yet, only to realize it's a misunderstanding when she starts blasting him with her Zuko-style magic. Later, after they've made up, Dylan offers to hire Ark indefinitely until all the elf kids have been rescued. But since inflation is skyrocketing even in the elven world, the cheap-ass offers information about his curse as payment for his services. Ark doesn't mind it since, after all, he's just really here for elf tale, so he instantly agrees. That night, he wonders if his amateur lie could actually be true, and he tries to undo the curse on himself, only to find that his muscle and skin have grown back on his arm. Although this turns out to be temporary, Ark deduces that it was indeed a curse that turned him into a walking stick figure. The following morning, Ariane and he begin their journey towards the capital while cutting through a forest. There, a swarm of Ark's mortal enemies, some dragonflies, attack him, and he barely survives with his supersonic speed. Later, Ariane tells him it's weird that a self-proclaimed alpha like him is scared of measly insects, and that people in town usually cut them open, fry them, and eat them. She offers to have him try it sometime, but he turns her down, saying he'd rather not start another flu epidemic. At the same time, Uriarna dispatches from her palace to visit the city that can get her in contact with the antisocial elves. However, while she's blissfully unaware, a sus guy in a cape stalks her from the watchtower. The next morning, as Ariane and Ark walk back through the forest to the capital, she tells him about the rumored wolves that inhabit this forest and are known for their tails which turn into expensive hide for luxury wedding gifts. Ark knows she low-key wants to get one for her sister's wedding, but before he can lecture her on animal cruelty, the said wolves, who have been watching them with their magic Sharingan eyes, attack them. After slashing a few of them, they both realize they can use shadow clone jujutsu, and Ark recalls from the game that these wolves create illusions to fool their enemies, while their leader controls them from afar. He quickly locates their leader and notices that he's wearing the same friendship bracelet as the crackhead Kermit from before, and instead of hunting him down, he just shatters the bracelet, after which The spell he was under is lifted, and they all run away. He later explains this friendship bracelet theory to Ariane, but she's more interested in collecting the wolf tails for her sister's budget-friendly wedding gift, so he lets her be. Meanwhile, Uriarna's carriage gets attacked by Dakaris' men, and both she and her maid get the shish kebab treatment. Ponta senses this and begins running haphazardly towards the crime scene, followed by Ark. The little Shrek fox lands on one of the traitor's ugly-ass face, who decides to get rid of her for good, only for Ark to step in and break his arm instead. While this guy dies from the fear of being hammered by someone as big as Ark, the others begin attacking him. This unbothered alpha, on the other hand, checks up on Uriarna and wonders if she is some traveling noble. Right then, the wolves from before show up and attack the villains, in hopes of paying Ark back for his services. With the losers out of the way, he uses another one of his overpowered skills to revive Uriarna, followed by her maid and the guards, and leaves like some vigilante hero. When Uriarna comes to, she rallies the team and decides to head straight to her destination while keeping news about her survival a secret. Meanwhile, Ariane gathers the foxtails and the duo finally reaches the capital, where Ark finds some stupid muscleheads who are about to beat a frail little girl in hand-to-hand combat. However, when she embarrasses them instead, he realizes she is none other than the ninja girl with cat ears from before. Upon seeing Ark, she recognizes him instantly and asks if he'd like to talk to her alone about some issue. Ariane refuses to let her personal chick magnet out of her sight, so she tags along.
Oh, hell no!
After being nosy and asking who this girl is. The cat girl introduces herself as Chiome, a ninja from the legendary Jinshin clan. Thinking about how his nerdy dreams are all coming true, this loser fails to contain his excitement, making Ariane wonder if he's having another fangirling episode. Once he composes himself, Chiome asks if he'd be kind enough to help her free her beast-kin comrades who are being kidnapped and trafficked, much like the elves. She offers to pay him back with stuff other than money, but since he neither wants to get jailed or spanked by Ariane, he turns her down, revealing he's dedicated to only Ariane at the moment. The elf chick, on the other hand, is desperate for information and sees her past loser self in the cat girl, so she agrees to help her. At the same time, an annoyed Dakaris throws a tantrum at the palace over his master scheme's failure and almost pisses his pants off, thinking that he just might become next in the dead people line instead of the throne. To save his pansy existence, his sidekick Cetrion takes him to a warehouse at some distance, while he himself holds on to the necklace his men stole from Uriarna. Meanwhile, Chiome takes the gang to the biggest slave market in the country, where beast people are being kept imprisoned, and explains that her fellow ninjas plan on attacking all the slave markets at once and rescue her people, all while the enemy's manpower will be focused on them. Ark deduces it means she is willing to endanger those imprisoned here, and although she feels like a coward, she calls it a necessary sacrifice. That's when Ariane steps in and reveals that with Ark's teleportation superpower, they might be able to save them all, getting her hopes up. She then leaves before telling them to prepare themselves because it's going down tonight, and instead of the gym, Ark heads to a local inn and begins his much-needed feast. Ariane watches him and wonders when he'd eat her peach like that, and offers him a meat skewer. When he says he likes it, Ariane reveals it's the meat of his beloved dragonflies, which he finds hard to believe. For step 2 of his war preparation, Ark gets swindled by a local vendor and buys a rotten sunflower mask, which makes him look like a homeless hobo. Just as Ariane lectures him on his trash-tier shopping choices, Chiome shows up with some jacked-up macho man named Gomen. This guy instantly gets attracted to Ark and intertwines their fingers, however, just before the girls think they are going to have a death battle. Bromance sparks between the two, and the story goes down the BL route. Later, as they kickstart their steal back the slaves scheme, the boyfriends attack the fort from the front while the baddies infiltrate from the back. To put on a show, Gomen grows 2 rock-hard bones, and breaks in through the gate. He then activates Super Saiyan mode and turns into metal, blasting whoever comes at them. Meanwhile, to show who's the top in their relationship, Ark summons his inner earthbender and smashes the ugly, useless guards. Gomen joins him with even more rock bones, which Ark augments with his earth magic, bringing the entire fort down at once. Meanwhile, as all the fort guards move to the front as reinforcements, Ariane and Chiome make it into the fort, only to come across some useless side characters. The cat girl uses this opportunity to turn into a kid-sized Aquaman and finish them off, while the elf Hottie unleashes her pent-up heat to barbecue them. They eventually make it to the basement, where all the beast people are incarcerated, and Chiome tells them she is here to save them. As soon as she unlocks their cages, another bunch of losers rush into the prison, only for Ariane to chop them off. At the same time, the dumb boyfriend duo resurrects from under the rubble and decides to go and help the girls, only for the boss ladies to rendezvous with them instead and reveal they have set the beast people free. Ariane explains they have kept them in the deepest hall of the fort for now, from where they will be teleporting them out, and asks for Ark's assistance in infiltrating the second building. Gomen stays behind to deal with the boneheads, who will be coming in from the castle as reinforcements, while the rest of them conquer the second building with ease too. However, when Chiome rushes to unlock the prison cells this time, she comes across a cell full of decaying corpses and curses herself for arriving so late. The other beastkin reveal that they are the ones who were sick or injured and were deemed useless for the market. It breaks her heart, but Chiome keeps going, while Gomen smashes the soldiers from the royal palace all alone. On the other hand, with everyone liberated at last, Ark successfully teleports them to the forest and goes back in to save his alpha twin flame. The bros successfully turn the soldiers into mincemeat, and Ark returns to the forest, not only with Gomen, but with the corpses of the beast people. They later provide them with a proper funeral with Ariane using her fire magic to set them free, while Chiome swears she'll become stronger so no one else has to suffer the way they did. At the same time, some real shit goes down at the palace as Dakares continues to take his groundless anger on inanimate things, and Cetrion grows more and more tired of his dumb and worthless existence. The ugly shithead annoys him enough to make him stab him, and Dakares dies wondering how he could be dumb enough to get screwed by his own henchmen. It turns out that Cetrion was Sect's man all along, who is also the one who attacked Yuriarna's carriage. By doing all this dirty work, what Sect's superficial existence wants is the throne, and an even bigger god complex. Meanwhile, Gomen and Ark share one last lover's embrace before concluding their mission, and the gang celebrates their hard-earned victory. The following day, Chiome repays their service by telling Ariane that the kidnapped elves have been sent to the Eastern Empire, which leaves Ariane dumbfounded. The same day, Yuriarna reaches her destination, where she reunites with her elder sister, who is married into the country's royal family. Her sister is moved to tears upon seeing her well and alive, and says she's glad Dakares couldn't unalive her when he tried. She also reveals that he's dead now, thanks to Cetrion, who couldn't stand his disgusting and smug existence after he found out about the attack on Yuriarna. However, since this princess doesn't have an empty, dumb head like the rest of her family, she realizes it has been Sect all along, who attacked her and then framed Dakares. She asks her sister to keep information about her survival private for now, and swears to unravel how much of a goody two-shoes and hypocrite Sect truly is. That evening at the Eastern Empire Palace, Abaldi reports Dakares' death and Yuriarna's disappearance to the kingdom's King Domitianus, who is nothing more than a gutter-tier remake of Howl. However, he seems pretty happy with the news, even though he should be more concerned about finding a better stylist for his hideous hair. Later, after a few days, Ark and Ariane are en route to the Eastern Empire when they encounter a group of dragons up in the sky, and Ark enters simp mode. However, Ariane is rather annoyed by their existence, since she can't send her messenger bird to Danka with them around, so Ark shows off how overweight he is and turns into a Thor ripoff to scare them off, only to electrocute Ariane and company as well. While his dumbass later tends to her, a sus creep stalks them from afar. That evening, they rest at a local inn and discuss how they don't have a clear map of the Eastern Empire, so they have to rely on scraps and their Peter Griffith-level judgment. That's when the previous stalker shows up and introduces himself as Karsi, a jobless local town resident. Ariane notices his elf ears and hides him, questioning how he could be dumb enough to show his face in a human town, only to realize Karsi is a local fan favorite. Ariane doesn't understand how an elf could live among humans, and he doesn't spend too much time getting it into her empty, thick skull. However, he does reveal that he believes they can coexist in peace, the prime example of which would be the relationship between Ariane herself and Ark. When Ariane only gets flustered, he changes the topic and offers her a map to the capital in exchange for their service in helping him capture a beast. Reluctantly, Ariane accepts the offer while Ark jumps around like a psycho over being able to see more of those disgusting creatures. That night, after the walking stick figure pays extra money to the inn's owner, she gives him a barrel of fine wine, which he takes upstairs where Ariane is still depressed over Karsi's statement. Ark tells her to loosen up with some wine, and although she claims to be a heavy drinker, she starts losing her shit after only 2 shots. Things get out of hand when Ark starts getting drunk too, and the hot chick jumps on top of the table, crawling up to him like she's a little too desperate to taste his fresh eggplant now that she has had alcohol. The heat starts getting to him too as he ogles her plump, juicy melons out on display for him, and she climbs on top of him, whispering that she wants some more. However, her drunkenness soon turns to madness, and she turns the place upside down before fainting for good. She wakes up next morning to a clothesless Ark sleeping on the floor, and a room that seems like it got hit with a cyclone. When they head downstairs for breakfast, the inn's owner tells them how the entire town heard their little R-rated cyclone going down, and Ariane can't help but feel embarrassed. It only gets worse when they join Karsi, and he mentions their violent cyclone session too, tagging Ariane as a rage-drunk psycho. Either way, Karsi begins their journey to the desert, where they are supposed to hunt and capture a huge sandworm, and introduces his human partner to them, leaving Ariane in disbelief once again. While the 3 of them talk about how this animal is resistant to fire magic and stays where dragons live, their rear carriage goes missing, and the humongous entity unravels itself from underground. Ariane is surprised to see that something could top Ark's sandworm from last night, but rushes to save the human, who is about to turn into the monster's dinner, instead of dwelling on it. However, since fire doesn't work on the beast, she almost turns into roast turkey herself, only to get saved by Ark. He tells her to get back to safety, and uses his raw strength to pulverize the beast like it's child's play. Thanks to this Saitama-esque move, Karsi successfully captures the sandworm for research, while Ark receives the map and a book about elven kinks as a present. Ariane, on the other hand, still feels like a constipated kitten, so she asks Karsi why he's living with humans, despite being an elf. He answers it's simply because he loves them, and that it isn't as impossible to love humans as it appears to be for her. Meanwhile, a soldier visits a Lil Pump ripoff named Fumba in an underground cave while the latter plays around with and claps some chicks. He tells him to cut down on the number of people he's kidnapping from their town, so their Emperor Domitianus doesn't get angry. However, this idiot doesn't listen to a word he says and takes him close to a well, where a shady creature hides. To prove that his beast pets need to be fed, he pushes one of the chicks into the well for the beast to devour. Around the same time, Ark and Ariane reach the Eastern Empire and begin fishing for information individually. The skeleton discovers that the people in town are disappearing, and that some can hear strange noises from an old fortress at night. However, he hears nothing about elves, and decides to feed Ponta instead. While he's doing so, he hears a woman scream, and being the eternal Captain Save-A-Ho that he is, he rushes to her aid at once. It turns out to be a hostess who's being harassed by Fumba's men, whom Ark quickly teaches a lesson with only a flick of his fingers. To reward Ark for his help, the hottie hugs him and asks if he'd like to get laid as thanks, only to be cock-blocked by Ariane, who walks in on them right then. Obviously pissed off about her clueless, unofficial boyfriend hitting on random street women, she tells the boyfriend stealer to get lost and begins ignoring Ark, whose only remaining brain cell fails to understand the situation. That night, as they infiltrate the fortress with weird noises, Ariane discovers a hidden passage inside it, and they make it inside, only to notice it stinks of beasts. The source of all this stench soon appears in the form of poor, homeless Fumba. Upon seeing Ariane, this sewer rat refuses to believe such an absolute hottie walked into his gutter all by herself, and he can't help but fantasize about devouring all her juicy meat. In a weird turn of events, he tells her to get rid of Ark's third-wheeling loser face, and she begins to attack him, almost as if she's hypnotized. The skeleton doesn't understand what's happening, but after exchanging some fists and mopping the floor with his loser face, he locates a sneaky bat hiding inside her hood and barbecues it, finally setting her free. As she loses consciousness and falls into his arms, Ark swears to pay him back in kind. The homeless loser, on the other hand, keeps digging his own grave by boasting how he can control monsters and make them do anything he wants, and that he unalived all the elves that were sent to his lair. Most of them after a long and lively session of torture. He even brings out his pet tiger, a power beast, to intimidate Ark, but since the skeleton has had enough of his inhumane BS, he slices the beast in two and swears to give him a taste of his own medicine. The wannabe tatted-up freak doesn't take him seriously and unleashes his possessed beast collection upon him, only to watch his masterpiece turn into a cheap jigsaw puzzle right before his eyes. With nothing else left at his disposal, he sends out a beast to unalive an unconscious Ariane. However, before he can harm her, Chiome shows up with her water-style prison and suffocates it. She further reveals that her comrades have unalived all the remaining beasts inside this fortress. So Fumba has nothing else left up his sleeve. The psycho guy only laughs hysterically as the ground begins shaking and reveals that they are about to see the wrath of his #1 creation, a multi-headed Loch Ness monster. Ark barely teleports to safety with all the useless ladies laden on his back, and notices the friendship bracelets from before clutched onto the beast's chest. Chiome suggests that they retreat since this mythical animal is too powerful for losers like them to defeat. However, Ark claims his impenetrable plot armor and unlimited ass pulls should be enough to do so, and decides to take it head-on. Just then, the monster prepares a Walmart version of Rasengan in its mouth and spits it toward Ark and his chicks, and he rushes in to save Ariane, who is still out of business. On the other hand, Fumba recalls his tragic backstory about how the Saitama-style monks in his native village called him a weakling, despite his ability to control beasts as big as the Loch Ness monster, forcing him to leave his home. Joining Domitianus later, he swore he would prove his worth, and believes that right now is the time to do so. However, unexpectedly for him, Ark and Chiome survived the previous attack with nothing but the knight's shield. Moreover, an awake, new, and improved Ariane, who has just activated Super Saiyan mode, swears that she will make sure this homeless freak pays her back in kind for what he did to her brethren. Ark suggests they deal with the monster first, who is headed for the town, but Ariane tells him to play the morality police himself if he wishes to, while she will go and mess up the ugly loser's face. They split up, and while Ark uses all of his culinary skills, magic spells, and weapons on the monster, Fumba gets a seizure from seeing that he's still alive after he took the massive Rasengan from him. After some struggle, Ark manages to behead the monster, only to discover that this steroid-amped lizard can regenerate in an instant. That's when he realizes that he alone cannot defeat such a god-level entity and summons a similar giant to deal with it. Meanwhile, Ariane locates Fumba's irrelevant existence, and after evading his weak attacks, calls him out on his BS, revealing that he's just a weakling with daddy issues underneath all that tough boy facade. This triggers him, so he starts showing off his leash, implying that she'll receive a kinky spanking if she doesn't shut up soon. However, this baddie stays unfazed and gets rid of his leash before turning him into an overcooked Thanksgiving roast. With that homeless loser gone, Ark's newly called upon horned buddy goes all out on the Loch Ness monster and bites all the pride off its face. When the beast realizes it doesn't stand a chance against Ark's MC status and tries to flee, he catches him by the tail and swings him around before letting him off into the sky. His horned summon then grills it over high heat, finally getting rid of the could-have-been calamity. With this threat out of the picture, Ariane receives news from Danka explaining that Uriarna has met up with their elf elder and the two have come to an understanding. According to their treaty, Uriarna would search for the missing elves and ensure their safety, while the elf kingdom would back her up against her elder brother's sect so she could claim the throne. Ariane doesn't feel too happy about this news, since she wanted to do the searching herself, but Ark lifts up her spirits by showing off his malnourished face to Chiome, who almost dies of a heart attack. While she whimpers from behind a tree, Ariane is reminded of the mythical spring they need to visit to cure Ark's curse, and the two of them decide to kickstart yet another journey. If you made it this far, you are a true plot master. Like, subscribe, and blow the comments with nice elf peaches to confuse losers who couldn't last this long. Until next time, you amazing plot legends.